Welcome to Flippening, the first and original podcast for full-time, professional, and institutional crypto investors. I'm your host, Clay Collins. Each week we discuss the cryptocurrency economy, new investment strategies for maximizing returns, and stories from the front lines of financial disruption. Go to flippening.com to join our newsletter for cryptocurrency investors and find out just why this podcast is called Flippening.
Clay Collins is the CEO of Nomics. All opinions expressed by Clay and podcast guests are solely their own opinion and do not reflect the opinion of Nomics or any other company. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon as the basis for investment decisions.
Hi, this is Mike, producer of the Flippening podcast. I'd like to welcome you to this conversation between Clay Collins and Mike Carson, founder of Park.io, which lets users backorder expiring domain names, and Gateway.io, which allows owners of Handshake Network top-level domains to sell second-level domains. For example, if you own the .zen top-level domain on the Handshake Network, you could use Gateway.io to sell yoga.zen, juice.zen, and unlimited other domain names. If you're unfamiliar, a top-level domain, or TLD, is the part of the name that follows the dot, like .com and .io. Handshake is a decentralized blockchain-based protocol that democratizes TLD ownership by enabling anyone to own a top-level domain. Clay and Mike spend a lot of time discussing business opportunities that exist for owners of Handshake TLDs. The conversation is split into 3 chapters. Chapter 1 is an overview of the domain name industry. Chapter 2 considers the new domain business opportunities made available by Handshake TLD owners. Chapter 3 covers several topics including TLD security, Gateway.io's bridge function, Handshake, and Mike's hopes for the future of the space. Transcript and show notes for this episode are available at flippening.com/Mike. That's flippening.com/MIKE. I should also mention that if you'd like to learn more about the fundamentals of the Handshake Network, how it works, and the process of buying top-level domains, please listen to episodes 72 and 73 with Namebase founder Teshem Rogier. Those episodes can be found at flippening.com/Namebase. And now before we get started, here's Clay with a word from our friends and sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by a really cool product that I personally love and endorse called Uphold. I use Uphold every day, so I'm reading you my ad, not theirs. So here are 6 things that I think you should know about Uphold. First, if you're using the Brave browser, you've probably already been using Uphold every day as it's their default wallet for holding your earned BAT tokens. Second, Uphold lets you hold and trade between crypto assets, national currencies, metals, and more in just one easy step. In fact, you can instantly swap between 27 fiat currencies, 30 cryptocurrencies and utility tokens, 6 stablecoins, and 4 metals, all from your very own wallet. Need to go from gold to Bitcoin in one trade? That's no problem. Want to send BAT to your Euro bank account? That's also no problem. Third, Uphold has 0 trading commissions and 0 bank and crypto withdrawal fees. Fourth, Uphold lets you buy cryptocurrencies directly with a credit or debit card, allowing you to lock in prices sooner than your ACH transfer can process. Fifth, Uphold allows for direct bank connectivity in almost 40 countries using ACH, SEPA, and SWIFT. Uphold recently added countries including the UK, Canada, Poland, the Czech Republic, Romania, Hungary, and Croatia. And of course, they already support the United States and USD. Sixth, and finally, you can open an account in 1 minute and start trading in 10 seconds. We're big fans of Uphold here, and as a product person, I think what they've done and what they've made seamless is really incredible. So I encourage you to try them out. To get started, just go to uphold.com/Clay today. Again, that's uphold.com/Clay, spelled CLAY, and that's my first name. You can also download Uphold from literally any app store. This episode is also brought to you by the good folks at Nexo.io. Here's a word from them. Nexo is the only lender offering instant crypto credit lines, which let you use digital assets as collateral to get cash in 45 fiat currencies and stablecoins. You might remember Nexo from episode 64, where we spoke with their co-founder, Antony Trenchev. If you haven't heard it, I highly recommend checking them out as it's one of our most popular episodes to date. And Nexo has a big announcement related to credit lines. Their annual interest rates for credit lines are now starting at just 5.9%, which may very well be the lowest borrowing rate in the entire industry. Nexo is also a strategic partner of exchanges, OTC desks, and crypto funds through its portfolio of structured financial products. Institutional counterparties can earn up to 8% annually on their idle stablecoins, enter into asset swap agreements, or directly borrow crypto. Individuals can also park their cash in stablecoins at Nexo's interest-earning account to get an annual return of 8%. What's more, interest is paid out daily, and you can add or withdraw funds at literally any time. So if you're looking to borrow, lend, or swap digital assets, Nexo is your go-to partner. Definitely explore Nexo.io. And if you're an institution, reach out to them at institutions@Nexo.io. Finally, this episode is brought to you by the Nomics API and CSV data export service. If you need an enterprise-grade crypto market data API for your fund, smart contract, or app, or if you need historical CSV dumps of trading data or crypto market cap data from top exchanges or even obscure ones, then consider trying out the Nomics API or our historical data export service. Our cryptocurrency API enables programmatic access to clean, normalized, and gapless primary source trade data across a number of cryptocurrency exchanges. Instead of having to integrate with multiple exchange APIs of varying quality, you can get everything through one screaming fast fire hose. And if you'd like to order historical cryptocurrency market data as CSV exports from top exchanges, then email us at sales@nomics.com.
Okay, back to our regularly scheduled program. Here's Clay's conversation with Mike Carson, founder of Park.io and Gateway.io. Enjoy.
Can you walk us through your entrepreneurial background? Like from the outside, you seem like you have achieved this dream of being a solo founder who's also an engineer and building kind of like pretty highly profitable bootstrapped businesses from scratch. There's a lot of people that aspire to that. It seems like you've done that. Do I have all of this right? Or have you been venture backed? Do you have co-founders? What's your entrepreneurial journey, and what's been sort of like the arc of your progress been like over the years?
I've always been a programmer. I knew that's what I wanted to do since I was, like in middle school. So it was just lucky that that's something that you could make money doing. So yeah, I knew I wanted to do that. I didn't know like the entrepreneurial stuff. Like I didn't know that's something I was interested in. And so like I was confused after college. A lot of people I knew, friends, were like kind of getting jobs and like moving up the ladder. And, I wasn't doing that. In some ways I kind of like felt like a failure for a while. Cause I wasn't necessarily like, I had a job and I worked at universities just doing some support stuff I did, like technical support, then I did some programming at a few different universities. I never thought about the entrepreneur stuff until later on. And then once I started doing that, I realized this was kind of a way for me it felt right. It just felt right because I didn't feel like I fit in with, doing the corporate thing or, trying to move up, into better positions or management. I didn't want to do that really. So I lucked out and found, what I wanted to do. Like it seemed like that fit well with what I wanted to do, which is like launch projects, just like make things that people find useful and just put them out there. And, so I actually, after working at university, I did some stock trading, day trading, and I had a blog about that. And this entrepreneur in Philadelphia connected with me because he was doing stock trading too. And so, he was older. It was like a mentor type of thing, but we did a startup together, WizeHive, WizeHive.com. We did that for like 8 years or so and built that up to, I think there's like 50 full-time employees now, and it's doing pretty well. And then in my spare time, I just got interested in domain names, cause you need them to launch projects. And so I got interested and I started looking into how they expire and like, what the process was with that. So then, I started Park.io, and it did pretty well. And, so that was like 6 years ago, I think. 2014. So 6 years ago, I started Park.io. And then, just recently this year, I've gotten really into Handshake.
It seems like there's a number of other projects in there. as well. I see like File.io, and there's Humbly.com and a few others. Would you say that kind of to date, WizeHive and probably Park.io are the biggest wins?
For a while, I've tried to launch things, and a lot of times they just didn't take off. But yeah, with Park.io, it just took off right away. Like, it was really clear that there was, that it was different. It was way different than other projects. A lot of projects I would launch, I mean, they might like even get on the front page of Hacker News and people might be interested in them. But then it would like die out over time, or there wouldn't be enough customers paying for it. But with Park.io, I didn't even advertise it. And the first day I launched it, I already got orders. I got a few orders, and then it just like never stopped. The orders never stopped. So, yeah, it was a clear difference with that. Like File.io, it's interesting. I mean, I launched File.io, I forget when that was, a few years ago, after Park.io sometime, I think, but, it gets a lot of use. A lot of people are using it. But it's not making money. In fact, it's losing money. So, I'm actually trying to figure out what to do with that now.
Was my initial description of you accurate? Like, are you, at least at the very beginning, was Park.io a bootstrapped, solo developer founder project that you just kind of did by yourself and that ended up taking off? Is that right?
Yeah. Just build it. I mean, I was just interested in like how everything expired. So I wrote some scripts for that. And then I was like, this might be interesting to sell as a service, a drop catching service. So then I just launched it, and then I did it myself for the first 5 years. And then, a year ago, I brought on a partner, Steve Webb, who's been helping me.
And for everyone who hasn't used Park.io, it's a service that allows you to secure .io domain names that are about to drop. One of my favorite things to do is to look at the lists of domain names that are about to drop sorted by when they were first registered. So I'd like to view the list of domain names that are about to become available and look at the sort of the earliest registered domain names, because they're often, at least for me, domain names that they're just better, right? Like, they're one words. They're sort of the domain names that were available before people really started using .io domain names at scale and before they became trendy with startups and such. Can you share any kind of ballpark revenue figures for Park.io or anything related to the scope and scale of the project? It's the kind of project that when I first saw what you were doing and I saw the auctions and I saw how many domain names were being sold each month, and then considered your renewal business, and then considered the fact that you were sort of accepting Bitcoin pretty early on, just kind of struck me that this was at least a 7-figure business that was being run by one person. Is that a false statement or a true statement?
It did get to, over $1 million in revenue. And it's stayed around like a little over $1 million in revenue.
That's incredibly impressive for a business that up until recently was run by one person. Congratulations. You are living the dream. Let's transition to chapter 1, which is kind of about the domain name industry. And in an earlier episode, we talked with Tieshan Rogier from Namebase about H&S, and it was a very handshake-focused conversation. But I'd like to kind of expand the scope a little bit and learn a little bit about the broader industry. Maybe the first place to start would be to ask you kind of who are the players within the domain name industry?
I guess, start at the top. ICANN, they manage all of, pretty much all of, DNS. I don't know that much about all of it, but all I know is that, they're I guess they're a nonprofit organization that, is really regulated. I mean, we have 2 ICANN registrars, so we pay our dues and we do all of the paperwork and all of the other, things that we have to do to like make sure that we're following all the rules of ICANN and stuff. So I guess, so there's ICANN who, sets all the rules and all that stuff. And yeah, I guess ICANN like works with, governments, and I think they were set up because at first the United States government was controlling .com and stuff like that. So I think they set up this like nonprofit, like international, nonprofit organization, ICANN, to manage it. But, there's been questions about how it's doing. Like, for example, the .org sale that didn't go through but was approved by ICANN, like the way that they handled that, people were upset by that. And then also with .com price increases, like with VeriSign, people were unhappy with that. So there's people who think that, it's not doing a great job, basically. But below them is, there's TLD owners, and then there's like registry operators who, provide the infrastructure to, run the TLDs, and then, registrars like GoDaddy, Namecheap and stuff. They have accounts with the registry operators in order to sell the domains under the top level domains.
Okay, so you've got ICANN at the top. They're a nonprofit, kind of multi-stakeholder entity, formed in the U.S. They're based in Los Angeles. It seems like they're really kind of sort of at the top of the food chain. They control basically the ecosystem. And I used to work for an arbitration company that handled domain name disputes, and they handled them on behalf of ICANN. So if people had trademark disputes or, wanted to make the claim that someone couldn't be using their domain name, they would sort of lodge a complaint with ICANN, and ICANN at the end of the day would rule on what would happen, and everyone had to kind of fall in line. So you mentioned top-level domain owners. So I guess within the legacy domain system, who are the top-level domain owners? What does it take to own a top-level domain? What does that process look like? And are there any sort of notable corporations that own a number of top-level domains?
All I know is it's really expensive. Like it's, I think there's $185,000 non-refundable application fee. And then there's like a lot of other fees and a lot of other paperwork and stuff that you have to do. So, I think, from what I have heard, it's like $1 million, it takes like $1 million or so to like, to have a top level, to get a top level domain.
And the application fee, like just to apply to get one, is six figures, right? It's like 150, 200 grand, something like that.
It's big companies that, own them or that can get them. Yeah. So I think, like Amazon has a lot, Google has a lot. That's one thing that I love about Handshake. And I think it's such a great, I didn't realize this when I first started getting into Handshake, is that it opens the floodgates to the TLD space, which is really awesome. Like having it just so these big companies and having it cost so much money to get a TLD really, I think, stifles innovation, because there's only certain types of people then, and basically companies that will get these. And is that what you want to be innovative? I feel like a lot of great innovation comes from, regular people, like people who are, trying, like a lot of great companies were formed, but not by other great, huge companies. They were formed by people like really working hard and innovating. And so I think I'm really excited to see the TLD space open up to those people.
Absolutely. So who owns .com, and .org and .net? Some of these original ones, are they owned by Network Solutions, or like, is there an owner of .com? There has to be, right?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a really good question. I think I know VeriSign manages it, and I know that they're making all the money off of it. So I don't know. Either like nobody owns it, but they get to manage it, so they make the money from it, or they own it. That would be my guess. I don't know for sure. But for other TLDs, like, .org, that was owned, I guess that was owned by a nonprofit, but then they were going to sell it to a for-profit.
They were going to sell it to like a hedge fund, right? Or a private equity. It was a private equity firm, I believe, was going to own, was going to purchase it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the, .com, what I'm seeing here is that it sounds like it's operated by VeriSign, but it isn't owned by anyone, but it's like it's under the jurisdiction of the US government. It sounds like .com's like a very complicated case. But like .io, do you know who owns .io?
Yeah, .io is interesting because so for the anything that's .2 characters is like a country code. So it's owned by a country. So like .ai is Anguilla and .ly is Libya. So basically it's owned by the government of that country. With .io though, it's interesting because that stands for Indian Ocean. And like there are some issues with that because there's islands there, but it's not inhabited by anybody, but it used to be, but they were like all kicked out. So there's these like, like natives to that place. There's a small population of these who are native to the islands in the Indian Ocean who are not there any longer, but they feel like they have rights to the .io name. But I think it was owned by a UK based company, like a UK company. And they sold it to Affiliates for like $70 million. So, I don't know.
I was looking at the history of the .tv extension, and it was like the island of Tuvalu, but they eventually sold it to VeriSign for like $10 million. One question about TLDs. Do you have a hypothesis or a theory on why some TLDs tend to take off? Like, I find it really interesting that maybe .biz or .us never really took off and maybe became used by a lot of kind of scammy, sketchy sites, but like .io somehow rose to prominence, perhaps because the developer community and the relationship between like input output, but really a lot of these domain names that end in .io have nothing to do with input output. What are your thoughts on why some of these TLDs take off and other ones don't?
Yeah, I think it's really complex, like dynamics of the internet. I mean, I think, .io, as far as I know, I think what it is some, developers, they couldn't get .com anymore because like all the good .coms were gone, or they're really expensive. So they were looking at other extensions, and .io is a tech term, input output. And so some good developers created some really cool projects on .io, which led others to inspired others to do the same. And so a lot of high quality stuff came out on .io at the beginning, and it created this culture around it. So I think that's something that it's kind of just random, it's not like anybody orchestrated that, I don't think. And it just kind of happened on its own. And I expect more things like that will happen in the future.
Okay. So we've got ICANN, we've got TLD owners, and then you said registrar operators, which are different from registrars. So what's the difference between a registrar like GoDaddy and Namecheap and a registrar operator?
Oh yeah, a registry operator. They basically run the registry for the TLD owner. And sometimes they are also the TLD owner. So like VeriSign and Affiliates, and some others. I think actually GoDaddy is now they just bought I think they bought Newstar, which was a registry operator. So it looks like they're going to be a registry operator, and they also bought Uniregistry. So yeah, a registry operator runs the registry for the TLD. Usually they have like an EPP system, which is the standard protocol for managing domains.
So the registry operator is the single source of truth about who owns which domains and where they point to and things like that. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then you've got registrars like GoDaddy and Namecheap. So, there's some of these registrars like iwantmyname.com have they offer 100 plus, 200 plus. I don't even know how many there are now. There's got to be at least, there's definitely hundreds of TLDs that are available today. How does I Want My Name go about selling these top level domains, and how does the TLD owner end up getting paid? Like, what are the sets of agreements and sort of contracts and operations happening behind the scene that allow sort of a registrar to sell a TLD or to sell a second level domain on a TLD What's the relationship between, I guess, let's start with registrars and registry operators. How do they work together?
Usually there's like this registrar-registry agreement you sign, and it's like a contract between the two companies, and then the registry will set up a registrar account on the registry system, and then you, as a registrar, access the EPP system with your registrar account. And so you have to usually prepay, or there's different ways to do it, but you can prepay your account, and then the registry charges a certain amount per domain name, and every time you register or renew or transfer a domain, you get charged a fee. It's deducted from your balance, and then you can sell it for whatever you want. So you can price it higher and try to make money that way. I think in the case actually of iwantmyname.com, I think they're a reseller, so they're not even, as far as I'm aware, they were not a registrar themselves. They were just a reseller, so they probably worked with another registrar that provided all that for them, and then they just resold domains. They were a reseller for that registrar.
Like, what's the difference between a registrar and a reseller? Sort of, to consumers, it would seem the same, right?
So a registrar, you actually have an account on the registry system. You have a login to the registry system. And actually, if you want to become an ICANN registrar, you have to do all this stuff. Like, you have to pay all these fees, and you have to do all this paperwork and do all these things.
Hey, I wanted to pause for a second to let you know that this episode of the Flippening Podcast is brought to you by our longtime and trusted partner, Nexo.io. As someone who personally uses Nexo, I wanted to point out a few things that I especially like about their crypto-backed loans. First, when the price of your collateral grows, so does your credit line. Let's say that you borrow against your Bitcoin when each is worth $5,000, but over the course of your loan, the price grows to $10,000 per Bitcoin. This means that the size of your credit line just doubled as well. I personally haven't seen anyone else doing this. A second thing that I really like about Nexo is that you only pay interest on the amount that you borrow. I've seen Nexo competitors require you to take out loans and force you to withdraw the entire amount. With Nexo, you get a credit line and can withdraw the funds that you need and not a cent more, paying them back whenever you want, with interest assessed daily. Again, this isn't something that I've seen any other providers do. The final aspect of Nexo I'd like to highlight is that they give you the ability to borrow against a basket of crypto assets. For example, if you post BTC, ETH, and BNB as collateral to your Nexo account, the Nexo Oracle calculates the real-time market value of those assets and adjusts your credit line accordingly. Again, to my knowledge, other providers in this space only allow you to borrow against one asset per loan. This episode is also brought to you by Uphold. As I said before, we're big fans of Uphold over here. In fact, there are several members of the Nomics team that uses Uphold. It's the only app that lets you go from anything to anything in one trade. Bitcoin to gold, no problem. Want to send euros to your sister using your XRP stash? That's easy to do. Just one trade and 2 clicks to get this done. Trade instantly between cryptos, stablecoins, national currencies, metals, and more. It's seamless, it's instant, and it's cost-effective. You can fund with a debit or credit card, trade with 0% commissions, and withdraw to your bank account or external blockchain network instantly, and with no additional fees. You can even send BAT to your bank account. When you have an Uphold account, you really can send anything to anything. To get started, just go to uphold.com/clay today. Again, that's uphold.com/clay, spelled CLAY, and that's my first name. You can also download Uphold from literally any app store. Finally, this episode is brought to you by the startup that produces it, Nomics.com. Nomics is a crypto market cap website and aggregator going head-to-head with CoinMarketCap. We stand as a transparent alternative to many of the sketchy market cap websites out there. We won't name names, but I think you know who we're referring to. Anyway, if you haven't been to Nomics.com in a while, I encourage you to visit our website. We offer transparent volume statistics for nearly every cryptocurrency and crypto exchange in the space, and I believe we have the only credible crypto exchange index in the space as of this recording. If you're sick of scammy ads, bad design, and manipulated data provided by companies whose founders hide from public view, then check us out at nomics.com. Okay, let's return back to the show.
So it's kind of complicated, and there's not that many ICANN accredited registrars because of the whole process and fees and everything. But you don't need to be an ICANN accredited registrar to access all of the registries. Like, for example, .ai, you don't need to be an ICANN accredited registrar, or you didn't need to be with .io at first, but now you do need to be.
you're allowing people to sort of catch drop domains, but then if they want to renew, they pay you. So are you guys the registrar, or are you a reseller for another registrar?
Yeah, we're a registrar. We are a registrar.
So there's a lot to unpack here. Could you explain a bit about what EPP is?
Yeah, it's just the standard like protocol, XML protocol to manage domain names. So they have like all this, your command to register a domain has to be formatted in a certain way. And, the command to renew a domain has to be formatted in this way. And, it's all laid out exactly how it should be done, but it's a standard that's been used, I don't know for how long, but for a while. And it's on most of the big TLDs, like .com. Most everything. I think all the new GTLDs, sometimes it's not on, some of these country code, like .ai. When we first started working with them, they were not using EPP, but we helped get them set up on EPP.
So is it fair to say that EPP is a protocol that allows registrars and registry operators to sort of communicate? So EPP is how a registrar would sort of submit to a registry operator, sort of the creation of a new domain name or the renewal of that domain name or things like that. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Is EPP sort of baked in to Handshake?
Handshake is basically just like replacing it can be used to replace the root zone of the internet. So it's just, you just manage the DNS for the TLDs, and that's it. But under that, like, that's what we set up. We set up a EPP registry operator for Handshake TLDs, and that's what Gateway.io is a registrar using that.
I was wondering what the relationship was between Gateway.io and Namebase. It seems to me like Namebase is the registry operator and Gateway.io is the registrar. Is that correct?
Yep. We've partnered, so Park.io has partnered with Namebase.io to set up the registry operator for Handshake domains. So yeah, Namebase is acting as the registry operator.
That's really cool. In particular, it's neat that this all happened in a permissionless fashion, right? Like, you didn't have to go get approval. You didn't have to go through a long process. You and Namebase just decided to do this together. Yeah.
And another thing, a cool thing about, we also we got the ex-CTO of the .io registry to help us with this. So he's basically helping us to run it. And so it's as robust as .io was. So it's solid. The cool thing is that, it's all EPP. So, it's really simple for existing registrars to plug into it. So like we have another registrar who's signing up now. And when they realized, like, they thought they might have to manage keys in it, like ENS, that, like, cause I guess they're used to like ENS, like they thought they might have to do everything differently than they're used to doing with like managing keys and stuff like that. But once we told them that it's EPP, they were like, oh, it's going to be really easy. So it's like, we wanted to make it really easy for existing registrars to just like plug in and start selling domains as they do now.
Hi, this is Mike cutting in from the editor's booth to bring another voice into the conversation. Here's Namebase CEO Chesham Rogier with his take on offering second-level Handshake domains through the existing system.
So the purpose of the registry in its current manifestation is really to enable economic access to the domains, allowing TLD owners to actually sell domains, which is something that is normally prohibited, because, ICANN is kind of like a gatekeeper here. They're not allowing new people to register GTLDs. And then when they do, there's like a $200,000 application fee. And then the existing TLD owners, like VeriSign and some of these other TLD owners, they basically get to collect rent because they're in a very coveted position of just having a monopoly on those names. So, in terms of the registry in this current manifestation, it's really about, empowering individuals to become their own entrepreneurs and enabling the economic access.
Okay, back to the show.
So I saw that, like, 101 Domain is either going to or has already started selling Handshake domains. It sounds like you're actually happy that 101 Domain is selling these. Why is that, given that they are ostensibly a competitor to Gateway.io? Is that accurate, or is that not correct?
Yeah, so Gateway.io is basically set up as the first registrar, just to allow a way for people to register domains on, Handshake TLDs. So it's set up just as the first, because we had, at Park.io, we have a registrar system set up. So we just set it up so people could buy domains. I don't feel like I'm competing with these other registrars. I want to get up, I think it's exciting to get as many registrars as possible. It'll be awesome if more and more registrars can sell Handshake domains.
Is that because you own some TLDs and sort of are probably more invested in sort of the price of HNS and sort of, reselling second level domains on your top level domains than you are about, sort of Gateway.io in particular being successful?
I'm really excited about Handshake. I have invested, like my company's invested. I've invested in like TLDs and also the Handshake coin. Like I feel good about, I've learned to trust my intuition, and my intuition is telling me this is a good investment. But beyond that, more important to me is, I think Handshake is the right way for DNS to go. And I enjoy working on it. And I'm invested in it, but I also just want it to do well and get out there. And I think it's going to be really good for the internet.
When it comes to resolving these domain names, I know there's NextDNS. That's the only one I can really think of. I'm sure there's going to be Chrome extensions and lots of things coming in the future. But do you have to essentially pick a side when it comes to the root zone? Like, do you have to decide that you're either going to use Handshake for your root zone or you're going to use ICANN? Like, does one have to be primary and the other one secondary, or can they kind of both coexist at the same level?
I think that, it depends on how the resolver is set up. If you use the Handshake resolver, I think it just defaults to Handshake, and all of the existing ICANN TLDs are like grandfathered in, so you can browse the internet as you normally would using a Handshake resolver. But yeah, I think it kind of depends. Like, I don't know how NextDNS will set. I think they're set up the same way, like, where if you use the setting to use a Handshake resolver, it just resolves all the Handshake stuff.
Let's transition then to chapter 2, which is about investment opportunities in the domain space. What do you see as the range of investment opportunities that exist for folks that are interested in generating a return in this space?
You mean like not talking about Handshake, just like the traditional domain?
There just seems to be like a whole host of ways to make money within the space, which is a, multi-billion-dollar plus per year business. But I think we covered most of them. I think, it's fun for us to drill down on sort of being a TLD owner and what the opportunity looks like there. I mean, to me, it seems like if you can own a successful TLD, it seems like one of the best investment opportunities that I can even think of, right? Like, you've got people paying you recurring revenue for these domains. It's fairly passive. The domains are being sold by like an army of registrars. Maybe let's just sort of drill down into the TLD opportunity. Let's say you sell a domain name for like $10. All right. So let's say a Handshake operator comes to you. They want to allow for their top level domains to be sold on gateway.io. And let's say they sell one domain for $10. Where's that $10 going? How much does the TLD owner get? How much does the registry operator get? How much does the, the registrar get? Are there sort of standards around the economics here? Or does it completely vary from situation to situation?
I think in the existing, ICANN way, it does definitely vary. Like some, I think these, some TLDs, .car or something like that. It's costs $3,000 to register a name, and the way that it works, I guess, is the TLD owner, they work out a deal with the registry operator, and the registry operator sets up the EPP, the registry system, the EPP system, and so they charge a fee probably per domain, currently ICANN, I think, takes a fee for every single domain sold. And then the registrars, they basically get a price per domain. So like, for example, I don't know what it is with .com but like, let's say it's $5 for a .com. That's what the registrar pays. So then they, mark it up and sell it for more sometimes. Sometimes they don't, just because they try to upsell them upsell their customers in other ways, and they just want to get as many customers as possible. And with Handshake, I mean, I think it'll be similar, I don't know the exact details, but I think Namebase will charge a percentage commission to, offer this service, the registry operator service to TLD owners, and put it into all the other, so that all the registrars can sell domains on the TLDs. And then the registrars will have a quoted price, like $10 for .js and $10 for text, and then TXT, and then they can, mark it up from there to try to make some money from that.
So for a $10 domain, $10 per domain per year, how much of that do you think the TLD owner would get?
You'd have to check with Namebase, but I think it'll be something like 70% of that, so $7.
And .txt and .js, do you own those personally, or does Park.io own those?
Yeah, Park.io owns .txt. We don't own .js. That's actually owned by Namebase.
You guys kind of went in 50-50. We'll do one of yours and we'll do one of ours.
Yeah, we wanted to do ours kind of just to like pilot it and like work out the kinks, and figure out how it works, and then start bringing in other people as we feel more confident about it.
How close do you think you are to being able to bring on additional TLDs?
I think it's like a matter of weeks.
That's incredibly exciting. Maybe let's transition to our next chapter, which is about what safeguards have to be in place for all of this to work. Let's say there's eventually millions of domain names on .txt or .js. Hopefully that's the case. Are all the owners of those second level domains on top of .js or .txt, are they all vulnerable to a scenario where the TLD owner loses their private keys, forgets to renew, etc., and then now all of these businesses and domain names that are, indexed by Google, is all of that value lost? Or are there things that can be done to make the whole process a lot safer for people buying second level domains on top of these Handshake TLDs?
That's one of the reasons we wanted to partner with Namebase on this, is that they're securing, the key, they're securing it, the TLD, and making sure that it's, renewed and stuff like that. And I think part of the agreement with the Namebase user, a TLD owner, will be that, they can't, transfer it, once they start selling names, and the TLD owner probably won't want to either, so I think it works out like, they, a lot of this revenue is just almost, it's like it's almost like free money coming to them. So I don't see a reason why they would want to, unless I think, one thing is like if they sold their TLD, sold the registry, like sold their TLD to another owner, like, cause it's like a business, there's like recurring revenue. So maybe they would want to sell it. Then I think they could transfer it probably to another Namebase account. I don't know. We would have to talk to Namebase, but I think they would be able to transfer it, but they would have the same restrictions, like they couldn't transfer it out of Namebase and things like that.
If I were going to buy a domain name on top of a Handshake TLD, I would want to know that the owner does not have the right to just shut all the second level domains down. I'd want an institution like Namebase or someone who I trust. I'd want there to be contracts in place to ensure that actually my domain name could never be taken down. But, it seems to me like you sort of providing peace of mind to customers here does require centralized solutions. Like you need to know that Namebase has the TLD locked up. But with that centralization, it seems like you're also at the mercy of, or you're also susceptible to a lot of the types of things that HNS is a backlash to. The second there's a registry operator who has control of the TLD and there's a registrar, that means the government could come in and just say, we need to take down this website, or there's a copyright violation happening here, or, a whole variety of things. Like it seems like it's almost exactly the same as the older system in terms of censorship resistance or the lack thereof. Does that seem accurate, or do you know something else to be true?
Handshake provides a lot of awesome things like being able to own, really own a domain with your keys, and a lot of great things like that. And this doesn't take away from all that stuff. Like you can still do all that. This kind of is just like, that's why we named it Gateway. It's kind of like a gateway between the current system of domains and Handshake. So it's kind of a bridge that makes it kind of makes all the existing domain, like registrars and stuff like that, will understand how to sell Handshake domains this way. So there are points of failure. There are centralized points of failure and things like that with, like registrars. And there's some good things like with gateway.io, you don't have to enter any personal information if you don't want to. Like you can register and not even enter an email address and pay with Bitcoin. And so it can be completely anonymous and private. But yeah, there are trade-offs, I guess. And this, gateway, it's kind of a way for people to get domains on other TLDs that aren't currently available and kind of open up the TLD space so people can buy domains on those, I guess is the way that it's doing it. But yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it, and it might be more like a compromise with the way that the current system is set up in order to kind of help ease the transition maybe, or something like that. But also, one of the things like I said before, the thing I'm really excited about is just opening up the TLD space and to see what happens. Like, you said it was interesting how like .io took off while some others didn't. And I think that's, I'm really interested to see how that happens here. Like, cause I think, a lot of domainers talk about domain names as like internet real estate. And I think it's kind of true. And I think TLDs kind of are like, almost like neighborhoods or something. It's like, .io is the neighborhood where all these, what you're kind of getting when you go to a .io domain, and it changes. Like but I think something like that could happen, like a communities form. Communities could form around some of these TLDs, and it'll be interesting to see how it develops.
Indeed. Yeah, and I guess, and at the same time, the United States government could go to Namebase and say, we need to shut down this domain, and they'd probably just have to comply. So I'm a huge fan of Handshake, very inspired by the project. I wish there was a way for second level domains to be as decentralized as top level domains are on top of Handshake. And it seems when it comes to second level domains, it's almost like everything is exactly like the previous system, even though TLDs are not.
It can be. If you own the TLD, you can set up whatever domains you want under that TLD. So and then you own the keys, and so you can make it completely isolated and different that way. But yeah, you'd have to own the TLD. And there's also, like, I think it was mentioned in the white paper, there might be potential ways to like create side chains, like Liquid or something, that you could you could kind of make sure that you own the second level domain, like using this, cryptographically. You could make sure you own it.
I'm sure that will come over time. We're on version, I don't even know what version we are on of H&S, and the innovation has just started. So I'm sure there's going to be solutions to these problems in the years to come. And I hope there are. I'm
so excited about, first of all, I've been looking for a blockchain-based DNS system for a long time. And a lot of these ones, like Namecoin, and there were problems with a lot of an ENS and things. There were some problems with these that I didn't, I couldn't get fully on board with them. But with Handshake, it's just it's solid and it's good. And but beyond that, this opening up the TLD space was a huge thing that I hadn't even been thinking of, which I am so excited about, because the innovation, to be able to own a TLD and to have no cost for creating domains under it, suddenly opens up unique applications that you couldn't do before, you can't do now on the internet, like building an application on a TLD, and things like that. It's going to be, so that's what I'm really excited about, is these applications built on TLDs that you can't do with current DNS. I think it's going to be really cool.
So thoughts on the future? What do you see is coming down the road? What are you most excited about? What do you think the future looks like for Handshake and Gateway?
It's nice when there's something that's just really interesting and fun, and you can work on it, a lot. So I am just really excited about this. I mean, it's kind of the combination of two things for me. I've been into Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is just a revolutionary invention. And I'm really looking forward to see how Bitcoin continues to change the financial world. And I've been, interested in domain names because of Park.io and stuff. And so combining these two together is really cool. And it's just, the cool thing about Bitcoin is, it opens up a lot of, it takes, all the things they say, it takes the money away from the government control, and it's, really creates a scarce digital asset. And so, create, being able to transfer value, over the internet, it's awesome. And so with domains, with having DNS on the blockchain, I just think it's going to do a lot of the same similar things. I think Handshake has the opportunity to do, really change the internet in a good way, really make it more free, bring it back to the people, and just much more free and creative. And, domains they're a digital asset, and they should not be, I think they're perfectly, it should be on a blockchain. It'll open up a lot of cool things, like being able to transfer, a lot of things that right now you have to trust a lot of, people in between. So I think, I'm really excited to see all of the stuff that comes, and I hope I can help contribute to a lot of the stuff that happens with Handshake.
The last question is a question that I ask everyone, and that is, if you could wave a magic wand and immediately and altruistically do anything for the space, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, I would love it if Handshake takes over, takes control away from ICANN and just opens up the internet to, everybody. I would love it, yeah, if everybody could have a TLD, and just to see what happens.
That concludes Clay's conversation with Mike Carson. I hope you enjoyed it. Before you go, I want to invite you to subscribe to our fully customizable daily crypto newsletter. It's the first of its kind in the industry. You choose the delivery time and cryptocurrencies. We ship tailored pricing data and market news 7 days a week. It's a great way to cut through the noise and drill down to the crypto market info that matters most to you. To subscribe, go to news.nomics.com. Again, that's news.nomics.com. All right, that's all for this week. Stay tuned for next week's episode. Until then, take care.
That's it for this week. To sign up for our free crypto investing newsletter, listen to other episodes, or get the show notes from this episode, please visit flippening.com. I also invite you to check out the startup that funds this podcast, Nomics, spelled Nomics, at nomics.com. Finally, if you got value from the show, the biggest thing you can do to help us out is to leave a 5-star review with some comments and feedback on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for listening, and see you next week.